tell you what it's like to walk the line between order and chaos. The first time I realized how thin that line really is, it was a night that began like any other, quiet, mundane, the hum of fluorescent lights, the dull thrum of a security monitor feeding you the illusion of safety. But you're about to learn something most men will never be told. The world is watching, and not everything watching is human. I had been a security guard for years, long enough to know the patterns, the rhythms, the predictable lull of night shifts in corporate buildings. I thought I understood danger. I thought I was prepared. And then came the contract that changed everything. A massive, government-owned building, standing alone, isolated, almost daring the night to swallow it whole. 6 stories of cold steel and glass, surrounded by a parking lot that could fit a small city, and woods so dense the horizon itself seemed swallowed. No one came or went without notice, or so I believed. It was my first weekend covering the overnight shift alone. I had volunteered, convinced myself it was just extra money, just another routine. The rain fell in sheets that night, hammering against the windows like nature itself wanted to warn me away. The storm was deafening, the wind rattling the barbed wire atop the fence, the kind of sound that burrows into your chest, makes your heart a drum you can't stop. I was in the control room, the top floor overlooking the parking lot, monitors glowing in the darkness. Everything was fine at first, boring even. And then a flash of lightning tore across the sky, and I saw movement, a figure darting between the trees, fluid, deliberate, impossible to mistake. I froze. My blood throbbed in my ears. Every instinct screamed to ignore it, to rationalize it, to convince myself it was fatigue. But I had been trained to see, to notice, and what I saw that night was no trick of the eye. It was watching me. By the time I realized that the figure had disappeared, the storm had done more than blind the sky. It had masked the intrusion. One of the cameras was down, dangling, broken by the wind, or so I told myself. Then came the alert, access to a restricted entrance. The code had been entered, the green light confirming a presence inside. I was alone, armed, trained, but alone. And then the power went out. I want you to imagine it. The world you trusted, gone. Darkness swallowing the floors, silence but for the rain, and something moving inside the building with lethal intent. The first time the line between life and death flickers like a candle in the wind, you feel it, deep in your chest, in every nerve. You learn quickly that courage isn't enough, preparation isn't enough. Sometimes survival is just a matter of knowing where to hide, when to run, and who or what is behind the shadows. The descent into that night was only beginning. What followed would teach me the most dangerous truth a man can ever learn, that the world hides more than it reveals, and some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. I stepped out of the control room into the hallway, and that's when the building stopped being mine. The fluorescent lights flickered like weak hearts, shadows stretching and twisting along the walls. My footsteps echoed, too loud, too deliberate, and I realized that in a place designed for order, every sound betrayed me. The storm outside had drowned out most of the world, but inside, Every creak, every whisper of air felt amplified, deliberate, as if the building itself was alive and watching. I moved toward the stairwell, flashlight cutting through the black like a knife. My phone had no signal, the landline dead. I was alone, and the intruder was inside. Not some random thief, someone organized, patient, aware of exactly how this place breathed, where its weaknesses were. Whoever it was knew the building better than I did. My training kicked in, but there's a point where training collides with reality, and you realize theory is worthless. The intruder didn't have to be fast, he had to be smart, and he was. I froze mid-step when I heard it, the faintest scrape of a shoe against tile, wet, deliberate, almost casual, echoing down the corridor behind me. My heart thundered, my breath shallow. This wasn't a random act, this was deliberate, surgical. Someone testing boundaries, marking territory, demonstrating control. And the worst part, he was waiting for the moment to strike. I thought about retreat, but even that was dangerous. The stairwell I came from would have exposed me. The elevator could have been a trap. I was inside a machine designed for security, and yet I felt its impotence. I realized sharply that security was a fragile illusion. All those monitors, all that technology meant nothing if someone inside understood it better than you did. As I climbed the stairs, my mind raced. Every shadow became a potential threat, every door a possible ambush. I was calculating, reassessing. Where could he be? How could he have moved so quickly? The camera feed still showed nothing. The footage had gaps. And then I understood. He wasn't just moving through the building. He was manipulating it, controlling the environment, dictating the rhythm of fear, deciding when I would see and when I would wonder. By the time I reached the 4th floor, I could hear it, the subtle creak of footsteps on the far stairwell. Close, too close. Every instinct screamed to hide, to wait, to think, but thought itself was a luxury I didn't have. The intruder wasn't just stalking me, he was asserting dominance over the space, over me. And in that moment, I understood something darker than fear. This was a game, and in games like this, rules are made to be broken, and men are made to be broken first. I realized then that this was not about robbery, not about intrusion. This was about control, a test, and if I failed, the consequences were absolute. The stairwell was a tunnel of shadows, every step a countdown, every breath a confession. I gripped my flashlight and my firearm, but the weight of them felt almost ceremonial, hollow against the reality pressing in from all sides. Somewhere below me, the intruder was moving, silent but deliberate, like a predator testing the intelligence of its prey. I could feel him. I didn't need to see him yet. I could sense the intent, the patience, the cold calculation. I reached the 4th floor landing and froze. The darkness was almost liquid here, pooling in the corners, thick and suffocating. My flashlight cut a narrow swath, illuminating the floor tiles that glistened from the rain tracked inside. And then I heard it. The heavy, wet thud of footsteps directly behind me, close enough that I could feel the vibration through the walls, the floor, my chest. My heart nearly stopped. Every training protocol screamed to prepare, to ready, to aim, but instinct demanded something sharper, patience, observation. Men think courage is enough, that training creates invincibility. It doesn't. Courage without strategy is just another form of suicide. And I knew that if I moved too fast, reacted too soon, I would be swallowed by the darkness and whatever was hiding inside it. I turned slowly, the beam of my flashlight trembling, and caught a glimpse of the long, dark coat, a silhouette that seemed to merge with the shadows themselves. The figure didn't move toward me aggressively. No, that would have been expected. Instead, he moved parallel, stalking, waiting, letting me sense his presence without confirming it. And in that moment, I understood the cruelest lesson. Fear is not just what you feel, it is what someone else can impose on you, invisibly, inexorably, until your mind becomes as trapped as your body. I took a shallow breath, trying to steady the adrenaline burning my veins, and realized something terrifying. I was not in control. Not the building, not the flashlight, not even my own instincts. The intruder dictated the rules. Every shadow, every silence, every creak was a message. You are being watched. You are being judged. You are prey. Then a subtle shift. A door clicked somewhere down the hall, almost inaudible, but in that silence it roared. I pivoted toward it instinctively, only to realize I had no idea what I would find. The building itself had become a labyrinth, and he had turned me into a rat inside it. Every instinct screamed to run, but there was no safe path, only choices that prolonged the terror, that let me live just enough to understand the full weight of what I was facing. I knew then, some knowledge changes a man, some experiences carve lines into your mind that never fade. And the reality was this: whatever happened next, I was already marked. The night, the intruder, the darkness itself, they had claimed me, and there was no turning back. The air on the 4th floor felt electric, like the building itself was holding its breath, waiting for what would come next. My flashlight cut through the darkness in shaky arcs, every corner threatening to swallow me whole. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears, a drum of warning, and yet, somewhere beneath it all, a cold clarity settled. Hesitation was death. Then I saw him. Not fully, just a shadow at the far end of the hallway, his long coat flowing like smoke behind him. He wasn't running. He didn't need to. He was asserting dominance. Every fiber of his presence screamed that he owned this space, that I was an intruder in his world. And the most horrifying part? I understood instinctively that he had been watching me, studying my patterns, learning me, waiting for the precise moment to exploit every weakness. I stepped forward, trying to measure distance, calculate angles, my mind racing with protocols and strategies. But the intruder had already rewritten the rules. The moment I moved, I realized he would be 2 steps ahead. The storm outside pounded on the roof, masking my every movement, but it also masked his, letting him blend into shadows like a predator merged with night itself. I remembered my training. Keep calm, observe, control your breathing. But calm had nothing to do with it. Fear is chemical, primal. It sears your mind, sharpens awareness, yet it also clouds judgment. My flashlight flickered as my hands shook, illuminating the hallway in irregular bursts. And then he moved. Quick, fluid, a phantom slipping from shadow to shadow, testing my reactions. Each flicker of the light revealed a figure that seemed human, but also impossible, too precise, too silent, too controlled. I made a choice. One step forward, another, every nerve screaming, every muscle tensed. I was not going to be the easy target. But then, just as I reached the midpoint, the sound came, a metallic clang, subtle, almost dismissible. My head whipped to the noise, flashlight swinging. He had created a diversion, pulling my attention, dictating my perception. And in that brief moment, the rules were clear. He was in control, and I was the pawn. It was then I realized something darker. The intruder wasn't just a man. He was a manifestation of fear made flesh. Every decision I made, every step I took had already been anticipated, predicted, exploited, and the building itself had become a weapon in his hands. Corridors as traps, stairwells as funnels, doors as obstacles. At that instant, I understood the cruelest truth about survival. It's not about fighting the threat. It's about understanding it, anticipating it, becoming something it cannot predict. And I realized with a cold certainty that the night ahead would demand every shred of my courage, every ounce of cunning, and the deepest reserves of my human instinct. I moved cautiously down the hallway, flashlight trembling in my grip, each step measured, deliberate, as if announcing my presence to an enemy I could not see. The intruder was everywhere and nowhere, an echo in the corridors, a shadow in the periphery of my vision, a whisper of movement I could feel but never confirm. I realized then that fear was not simply a feeling. It was a presence, a living force, manipulating every heartbeat, every decision, every breath I took. The storm outside raged like an accomplice, hammering the roof, sending rain cascading down the windows, masking my footsteps, but also his. He had turned the environment into an extension of himself, a weapon, a maze where I was constantly on display, constantly vulnerable. Every door I passed was a potential ambush, every flickering light a threat, every creak a signal that I was being watched. I was alone, yet not alone. The building itself had been taken over by his control. Then, movement, subtle but unmistakable, a shadow crossing perpendicular to my path, moving just beyond the reach of the flashlight. My pulse jumped, my grip tightened. I wanted to confront it, to assert my presence, but instinct screamed otherwise. Any rash action could reveal my location, give him advantage. So I moved in silence, using the shadows to my favor, yet knowing full well that in this space he dictated the rhythm. I was a marionette, and he held the strings. I realized something deeper in that moment. This wasn't random. This was deliberate, a test. Someone with patience and calculation, observing, learning, waiting for me to make the first mistake. The first step wrong, the first hesitation, and he would strike. He was not a man chasing money or vengeance. He was a presence shaping reality, and I was a participant in his game. A faint sound drew my attention to a stairwell. It was the subtlest scrape, a whisper of movement, yet I felt it vibrate in my bones. I approached cautiously, flashlight darting between stairwell railings and shadows, and I knew he was close, closer than I could measure, close enough that every sound I made was known to him, close enough that he could manipulate my decisions before I even realized I was moving. In that moment, I felt a shift in myself. The fear, the adrenaline, the paranoia, it wasn't just a threat to my body, it was a threat to my mind. Survival here wasn't about muscle or weapons, it was about perception, about anticipating the invisible, about learning to see what he wanted me to miss. And the more I understood this, the more dangerous it became. I was descending into a game I had never agreed to, but the rules were already written, and the stakes were my life. The stairwell opened like a trap, shadows pooling in every corner, the damp air smelling of cold concrete and rain seeping through cracks above. I could hear him almost, but not quite. It was a whisper of movement, a subtle shift of air, the faint scrape of leather against metal. He was close, yet invisible, and I understood in that instant that visibility was irrelevant. In this game, presence was measured not by sight, but by fear itself. Every step I took was deliberate. I was counting, calculating, anticipating his next move, but he had already anticipated mine. The pattern was clear, invisible threads connecting my instincts to his control. The intruder had weaponized patience. Each flicker of a light, each groan of the building, each beat of my heart, he was using it all against me. I realized then that this wasn't just about breaking in, this was about domination, and I was being taught a lesson I hadn't asked for. Then a sudden sound, a door somewhere ahead, opening and closing with mechanical precision. My flashlight swung instinctively toward it, but there was nothing, not a person, not a trace. Just a hallway of empty offices staring back, sterile and indifferent, and yet I felt him, as if the darkness itself had taken shape and was observing my every movement. Every instinct screamed to run, to hide, to escape the unseen predator controlling this space. But running meant leaving options open. Hiding meant surrendering the initiative. I was trapped in the middle of the storm he had orchestrated. I pressed forward, the stairwell spiraling downward, each step a test of nerve. Then I heard it, the sound of wet footsteps directly behind me. He wasn't rushing, he was methodical, letting me hear him, letting me feel the threat without ever showing it fully. It was a psychological assault, a lesson in fear, a demonstration of control. I realized I was being studied as much as I was studying him. He didn't just want to confront me, he wanted to dominate me, break the rhythm of my mind, make me predictable. And in that instant, I understood a deeper truth. Danger isn't just external. The real threat is the one that burrows into your mind, the one that teaches you how vulnerable you truly are. He had already stripped away my illusion of safety, my confidence, my sense of preparation. The intruder wasn't merely hunting me, he was exposing me, evoking the fragility of human perception, the illusion of control. Every step now was a test, every sound a challenge, every shadow a question. Are you ready to survive, or are you already lost? I reached the bottom of the stairwell, breath ragged, heart hammering, flashlight trembling in my hand. The darkness ahead was absolute, broken only by faint flickers of lightning from the storm outside. And then I saw him. Not a shadow, not a suggestion of movement. He was there, fully present, a figure in black, face obscured, standing at the edge of the hallway like he had been waiting for me. Every instinct screamed to fire, to move, to react, but my mind froze, locked in a battle between training and terror. He didn't move. He simply watched, every ounce of his being radiating control, dominance, a quiet threat that needed no words. And in that moment, I understood the cruelest truth of the night. He had orchestrated everything, shaped every step I had taken, controlled the space, the perception, even my fear. He had won without striking, claimed victory through patience and precision alone. Lightning flashed, illuminating the hallway in stark white, and for a split second I saw something in his eyes, a glint of calculation, of amusement, maybe even recognition. Then he was gone. Not running, not retreating, simply vanished into the building like a ghost, leaving only the echo of his presence, the cold impression of being hunted by a mind far sharper, far darker than my own. I stumbled backward, adrenaline flooding my system, realizing that I had survived by instinct alone. The storm outside was a distant roar, the building quiet once more, but the weight of the encounter remained. He had left a message, unspoken but undeniable. The world is controlled by forces you cannot anticipate, cannot see, and cannot fully prepare for. And the closer you get to understanding, the more you realize how fragile your sense of safety really is. When I finally reached my truck, soaked, shaking, and still hyper-aware of every sound, every shadow, I realized that survival was never the same as understanding. I had survived the night, yes, but I had also been marked by it. Every future encounter, every dark hallway, every storm-driven night carried the memory of the intruder's dominance, the lesson of patience, calculation, and control. And though the police would later investigate, though reports were filed and cameras checked, they found nothing. No trace, no explanation, nothing but the terrifying knowledge that someone had walked through that building with a level of skill and patience that defied ordinary comprehension. I drove away, but the lesson remained. Some nights imprint themselves on a man's mind forever. Some encounters do not end when the danger leaves. They linger, waiting in every shadow, every quiet moment, a reminder that the world is controlled by those who understand fear better than you ever will. That night changed me forever.